Welcome to Home Dad Chat, brought to you by the National At Home Dad Network. My name is Brock,
My name is Danny.
and we are here to talk about life as stay at home dads. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
No, I don't want much. I even love handmade crafts made of macaroni. Come on now, you should know me. Times I might eat too much. No worry about my weight, got the dad bod rocking on me. Sketches on my feet, cargo shorts look good on me. I'm a dad, that's what I do.
Hey, everybody, welcome to Home Dad Chat. Like I said, I do have to move my beer. It's in the wrong place. All right, there, I moved it. Okay.
It's too far away. You don't want to reach.
It was too far away. I was having to reach over my microphone. You don't want to hear that. Anyway, yeah, we're back for another fun episode where we're going to be talking with another board member and getting to know them. Tonight's board member, if you know, you know, and if you've had his meat in your mouth, you really know. We're definitely talking with the one and only Matt Strain. So if you like craft beer or you like meat or Legos or whatever, I mean, we're going to talk about all kinds of fun stuff tonight with
definitely
Matt.
food.
Definitely food. Yeah. Maybe mushrooms of some kind. I don't know.
Yep.
But yeah,
the cooking kind, not the other kind.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. I guess we won't talk.
You have to, in this day and age, you have to define the difference because.
Although I am curious to know if, while his foraging, if he's ever come across any of those magical shrooms just out and about.
I don't know how they occur. I mean, obviously they're natural somewhere. I mean,
they are.
You know, and I know people that do grow them, and it's a very specific thing that they do, and they have to be a very sterile environment or get cross-contaminated with other spores or things like that. And it's really very scientific. But at the same time, I have to believe that there's somewhere out there in the woods, you know, somewhere, because how else did you find them? You didn't breed them, I'm sure.
From what I understand, there's certain types that are just out there in the woods. So I guess if you get lucky and find them, a magical trip you will be on.
Yeah, I've never really been on a trip like that. I don't know if I want to, but you know, I'll just handle just getting slightly buzzed every once in a while, you know, like a beer, not a beer, but a shot of whatever, and I'm like, whoopee, I'm good.
But yeah, so we're gonna have we'll have Matt on here in a moment, and we're just gonna have a fun time talking. Maybe we'll talk about his favorite types of spandex too. We'll see.
Yeah. Let's not.
All right. Well, we'll be right back, and it'll be a fun show. So here we go. Become a member of the National At Home Dad Network, an organization focused on providing advocacy, community, education, and support, connecting with households where dad is the primary caregiver of the children. We do this through our webinar and podcast series, mental health support groups, regular online social events, as well as our annual convention. The National At Home Dad Network is a 100% volunteer organization. Without the generous support of its members and the community around it, we would not be able to continue the work that we do. Becoming a member gives you access to past convention speaker presentations, the ability to vote for board members annually, and ensures that the organization's fees and bills are in positive standing. Oh yeah, it should not go unmentioned that there is some cool swag headed your way if you decide to become a member. For only $35 a year, your membership provides you with the exclusive content only we can generate, and you'll be supporting an organization that benefits families all around the country and world. By advocating for them, offering them community, providing education and guidance, and supporting them to grow in their parenthood journey. And one last thing, if you contribute $500 or more, you will become a lifetime member. Not only will you receive everything already mentioned, but also a certificate recognizing your status and an exclusive National At Home Dad Network challenge coin with our trademark logo, Dads Don't Babysit. So, what are you waiting for? Become a member today. And we're back. And we've got Matt Strain with us. And
hey,
he
guys.
is man, we got your green. What does your shirt say? Swim, bike, run. Well, that makes total sense for you.
Yeah.
I have to say
Awesome.
too, when you came on the video, my immediate thought was you were in some sort of den or parlor or man cave, if you must, and those glass doors that are probably out to the exterior. But the way I saw it, because it's dark out there, like, is that like your stash? I mean, is that where you put your special meats or your, is this like,
No,
this is where you make sausage? I mean, I don't know.
Actually, the glass doors go back to a sunroom. This is the room that sold our house to us.
It's a
when
cool
we were
room.
looking at the house, we came in, and this is the original study from when the house was built in 1951. That whole wall is built-in bookshelves.
Oh yeah.
There's a fireplace in front of me. It's got built-in cabinets, and this is all the original like heart pine hardwood walls that were put in here in 51.
It's a
Nice.
neat house. I got to be there for a board retreat a few years ago, and yeah, it's a cool that's a cool little space right there.
Yeah, this room makes me happy. It's also right next to the extended range router for the computer. So I wanted to make sure that I didn't end up lagging in the middle of the show. I'm looking out for you guys.
Nice.
Much appreciated.
Definitely. Well, if you haven't noticed already, we are talking with Matt Strain. He is one of the members for the board. He's acting secretary currently, and he's been in that position since last year. And Matt has he's been around for a bit. So let's start out with this, man. How long have you been with the organization? And or actually do this. Tell us a little bit about your family dynamic. What's how many kids you got? Who else you got keeping you in check? That kind of thing. I don't know.
Well, I have two kids. My oldest is Lily. She's 8 years old, going on 22. She turns 9 in January. And then I have my son Patrick, who is 5. She's in 3rd grade. He's in kindergarten now. And then I have my wife Angela, who definitely keeps me in check. That was the moment I fell in love with her, is when she blatantly insulted me on our first date. It was awesome.
She's a lovely lady. I could see her doing that to you.
Yeah. No, so at some point during our first date, she asked me how old I was, and I began planning my walk of shame out, because I knew that she was much younger. And I looked up and I said, well, how old do you think I am? Stalling for time. And she said, I don't know, 25, 24, 25. And I let out a big sigh. And I said, actually, I'm 30 and I'm going to be 31 in a couple of months. Is that a problem? And she actually stopped and thought about it. Like, I could hear the Jeopardy theme in my head. And I'm literally planning on just how I'm going to walk out of this bar and walk home from here. And she looked at me and said, well, people have always told me that I'm really mature for my age, and you're really immature for yours. So we meet in the middle. And it was at that moment that I thought, I love this woman, and I need to spend the rest of my life with her, because she is not afraid to just slap me upside the head when I need it.
There you go. That's awesome.
It's a valuable thing in a relationship to have somebody that will, that somebody that will come to you and they will help you and put up with your stuff, but also somebody that's not going to put up with your stuff,
who knows at a certain point just to look at you and be like, get over yourself.
Right.
You ain't all that.
Right. Yep. Right. Yep. Give you wings, but also keep your feet on the ground. That's
there. She's a doctor at UNC Hospital in Chapel Hill. She's currently the chief of emergency psychiatry. So she's actually running a whole division, which is a good bit of work. And it is one of the reasons why it's good that I'm here at home. You take a night like last night. In theory, she was done with work at 5. I think she got done at around 7:15-ish.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to have me home to keep the fort here and make sure the kids are fed and bathed and you know, vaguely keeping up with their schoolwork. I mean, they're young enough that there's not that much homework yet.
Right.
Yeah, but just the habits, right?
Yeah.
Just getting the habits. And I have to say too, and this is a great point that you bring that up, because I look at how my wife and the wives of many of our members are very successful. And my wife has told me, and I finally believe it, that she would not be there if it wasn't for me being here. You know, the value of having someone at your house, take care of the home, take care of the kids, take care of the meals, the laundry, and all that other stuff. But someone that's there so that you can kind of set all that aside, all the worry and all the stress, and say, okay, that is being taken care of. Now I can focus on, especially if you're talking about medical professionals, I need to focus on this urgent, immediate, must take care of thing that's going on at work. So that's a great point. I'm glad you bring that up.
I think that's a reason.
It's huge.
I think that's also a reason why our number one listened to podcast episode is how to communicate with your partner.
Is it still?
It is. Yep.
We got to top that, man. We got to knock that out on number one.
That was Danny and his wife, and me and my wife, all four of us talking about how we communicate. So yeah, communication, man, it's key. So
it matters more than anything else out there.
Definitely. So you've been a stay-at-home dad basically since Lily was born, correct?
Yeah, it'll be 9 years in March.
Nice. That's awesome, man. Yeah, and then I remember you posted a picture this year of you running away as you dropped your child off for their first day of school.
It's a day I have been dreaming of for a while. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love my kids. I have greatly enjoyed all of the time that we had in those younger years. When the pandemic hit in 2020, that was supposed to be the first year that my daughter was going to be in first grade and my son was going to be my son was going to be in his first year of pre-K. And I was going to have like half a day to myself, like 5 days a week.
Yep.
And then the powers that be just kind of looked at me and went, no.
The world said, hold my beer.
You get to spend 2 years just shackled to them.
Yep.
And we went through the 2 years. And then when my daughter started second grade, she went back in person, and my son did a year of pre-K, which gave me, that half day. And then this year he started kindergarten. And it's a thing of beauty because they both go to the same school. So like we walk to school in the morning and I drop them off at like 7:30 and I walk away and I don't have to do anything until like 2:15 when I walk back to pick them up.
Yep.
Nice. And it's nice to be able to like drop them both off and pick them up at the same time. And it's opened up a lot of spare time for me to pursue some of the things that make me a little bit more happy.
Yeah.
And I didn't really have the time to do when I had, a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's segue into that a little bit. So I'm curious, like you mentioned, you drop the kids off and you kind of got this like time to sort of take a breath, maybe get some things done at the house. But like, what are your like favorite things to do that are like on a self-care level when you have that time away from the kids?
Well, it's changed a lot in the last year. If you had asked me that question 2 or 3 years ago, the answer would have been like hopping on my motorcycle and going out for a ride on my motorbike, or maybe going for a hike in the woods. In the last year, I got bitten by this triathlon bug. So, today is a prime example. I dropped my kids off at school. I came home, I changed clothes, I went out for a run. Went out and did a run, came back home, and then started knocking out some of the work around the house. Usually pre-surgery, because I just got a hernia repaired, I would do something every day, whether it was ride my bike or run or swim. I just got cleared by my doctor to begin what she referred to as light exercise. I can jog but not run. She's like, you can ride your bike, but let's try to avoid doing a lot of hill work. So what I'm doing now is I'm doing it every other day. So like today I went for a run. Tomorrow will be a rest day. So
Mhm.
I'll stay home, get a bunch of stuff done around the house. And then Thursday I'll probably take my bike out. But these days, if I had my choice for anything to do for self-care, I would hop on my bicycle and go out for a good like 50-mile ride.
Dang.
I mean
Nice.
that
Dang, bro.
that's my happy place is I
Mhm.
throw some earbuds in, I put a book on tape on, and we've got some really, really great biking trails here in the Triangle. My personal favorite is the Noose River Trail. That is 31 and a half, 32 miles one way and then
Nice.
back. And over that entire course, there is one street crossing.
Nice.
Wow, that's
And it
awesome.
is and it is in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
there's a street
great.
crossing and you're coming from one side of private farms and there's a two-lane blacktop road and on the other side is North Carolina State University's agriculture farm.
Nice. Okay.
So in all the times riding back and forth, I have seen two cars on that road ever.
Mhm.
You know,
That's great.
I've seen more bikes on that road than I've seen cars,
Yeah.
which is awesome. But yeah, no, it's great to be able to go out and do 50 miles and not have to deal with traffic crossings because, you know, we've all been there, or at least those of us who cycle know, like you're in the groove and then you come on that road crossing, you actually have to stop
Mhm.
and
Yep,
you lose all that momentum.
Right. Yep. Yep.
definitely. Well, that's cool. Yeah, I know that you've been doing that for a while. I so that
It's
sort of
actually it actually hasn't been a while.
well,
It's only been a year.
has it really only been a year? Man, it feels like it's
My
longer than that.
my first triathlon was in 2021.
Okay.
It was the first weekend of October. It was right before Home Dad Con in Cincinnati, and I did a sprint triathlon. The goal was to do one before I turned 50. I wanted
Yeah.
Mhm.
to check it off the bucket list and never do it again. That was the whole plan.
Yeah, okay.
And I did it. I came in dead last. It took me almost 3.5 hours to do a sprint triathlon, which is really, really long. But I finished. You know, I touched the starting line, I touched the finish line before the cutoff time.
Nice.
And like as I was laying in the grass in the park, like sweating and panting and desperately trying to remember how to breathe, the only thought in my head was, when can I do this again? And I went overboard. In 2022, I signed up to do 5 more. So I've done 6 triathlons in the last year,
Wow.
5 sprints, and then I went back to the one that I did for my first one and did that as an Olympic distance one this year, which kind of doubles the distance on most of the race.
Man,
Unfortunately, it
congratulations on that.
doesn't double the cycling portion, which is the easy part.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
you feel
congrats.
like that's something you're going to be doing from now on? I mean, you said you got the bug, but
Oh
at
yeah,
the same time, I mean, surgery and then no offense, but getting older,
yeah.
but still
Well,
keep it in
that's
the,
the beauty is that, you know, now I'm in the 50 to 54 age group. And the older I get, the less competition there is, and the more likely that I'll be
oh,
in
I'm
the top
sure.
three because there's only three of us in that age group.
Nice.
Um,
Excellent.
Honestly, I'm 50. I turned 51 in February, and I'm probably currently in better shape than I've been since I was in my 20s.
Hmm.
Just because I'm actually getting up and doing things. Now, next year I'm dropping down to 3. I'm doing one sprint, and I'm actually doing it with one of our fellow stay-at-home dads, Chris Griffin, who was at Home
Oh,
Cool.
Dad
cool.
Con in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Chris reached out to me. He's like, I want to do one of these. So we picked one to do together. And I'm going to do that one as a sprint. And then I'm signed up to do 2 Olympics. And depending on how that goes, I'm thinking that in 2024 we're going to bump things up and hopefully build towards doing a full half Ironman or a half Ironman distance
Hmm.
in
Wow.
either 2024 or 2025. And then the end goal, of course, is to get to the point where I can do the full Ironman.
That's awesome. Oh,
which
Nice.
goodness.
Good goal.
for those who don't know, that's the full Ironman is a 2.4-mile swim, 112-mile bike ride, followed by a marathon.
Whoo.
Yeah.
Yo. Okay.
You do have like 17 hours to finish it.
That's
Mhm.
good. You're gonna need it. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
whew.
Well, you laugh. I mean, I
No, no,
think
I'm
you
not
know
laughing.
there are people who regularly do it in like, sub 12 hours, sub 11 hours.
Yikes.
There's a couple of people who have broken the 10-hour mark, which is just ridiculous in my mind.
Holy
I mean,
cow.
I don't have any delusions about like breaking any records. I just want to like prove to myself I can finish it.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, heck yeah, definitely. Now I am curious because we did mention when we were talking you up before you came on, we were talking about some spandex, but the main thing that I'm like, you and
Wait,
JH,
wait.
what?
We only mentioned it once. It wasn't like I just want to give you the impression that we were like,
Man, deep
spandex
discussion about
can be
spandex. Go for it, man.
no.
Anyway, so you and JHG surprised
Yeah.
me with a design that you guys came up with to actually sell, which is a full-on kit, jersey, and shorts, or it's like the
And
full
the bib shorts.
or the bib shorts. Yeah. Do you wear that when you're out competing?
When I'm competing, I actually wear a tri-suit, which is
Okay.
basically the same thing but a onesie.
Okay.
The idea behind it is that it's got a little bit smaller of a pad than your standard cycling jersey does,
Okay.
because it's one garment and you swim in it, you bike in it, and you run in it, so that you don't have to switch between like legs.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
I see. So you wear that the National At Home Dad Network cycling kit when you're just out training then.
Yeah. I mean, I've got several different kits that I wear. I've got everything from a Cookie Monster one. I've got an Empire Strikes Back one. I've got my National At Home Dad Network one. I've got an athletic one. I've got one that's for the Pactimo ambassadors, because I got picked up as an ambassador for them. So I've got one of their kits that just is for the Pactimo Ambassador Club.
Yeah.
Just whatever happens to be clean.
Cool. Well, I just had to put a shameless plug in. I had to put a shameless plug in for it.
Oh no!
Honestly,
and I will say that the National At Home Dad Network kit is one of my favorites to wear. Every time I stop on the trail, someone will ask me about it, because it does say dads don't babysit.
yeah.
It's called parenting in big letters on the back, and it's got our logos everywhere. So it's a great conversation starter.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
definitely.
sure, yeah.
Yeah. And I'll drop a link in the description in the description too, where people can find that jersey, because it's well priced, and it is a nice piece
Yeah.
if you're into riding. So for sure. Oh man, dude. Okay, so so with all that,
Mm-hmm.
you get into the organization. When, like, what was your first convention, and what was that like for you?
So my first convention was the second Raleigh convention in 2016. Um, I knew nothing about the organization. I was in this like deep, dark pit of depression. Like life was ugly. I was convinced I was the only stay-at-home dad on the planet. My wife was really worried about me. So she's involved in several different Facebook, or at the time, several different Facebook groups, one of which was for physician moms. And she found out that they had a splinter group that was for dads married to doctors. And I joined that group, and it's a fantastic group of guys, not necessarily for me, because a lot of the guys that are in that group are very, very much into their careers and are career driven.
Mhm.
So as a stay-at-home dad, I didn't have a lot in common with them. They have a subgroup for stay-at-home dads that I'm still very much a part of, that I think is fantastic. But while I was in that group, of all things, Carl Wilkie posted a link to the convention like ticket site, mentioning that that day was the last day to buy tickets before the price went up. And I had never heard anything about this. And I'm like, well, it's in Raleigh. And I followed the link and I looked at it. And I won't lie, I was skeptical. I had no idea what it was going to be. Like half of me was like, this might be cool as anything. And the other half of me was like, this could be the most awkward thing ever.
Yep.
So I texted it to my wife and I'm like, I kind of want to do this. And she texted me back and she's like, it looks interesting. We can talk about it. And she was working a night shift that night. She was actually going to be at work until late. And I mentioned to her that, well, today's the last day to get the discount pricing. And my wife is very frugal. Her immediate response was, well, then book it. So I bought the ticket. And that was my first exposure, was the day that I walked in there. I knew no one at all. Like, I mean, there were two people I knew. Both of them were sleeping at my house because we had a hurricane that came in that weekend, as often happens when we throw Home Dad Town on the East Coast.
Yep.
And a couple of the guys, one of them was a fellow dad, stay-at-home dad married to a doctor. And I had reached out in the group and said, hey, man, if anybody needs a place to crash, like I've got an extra room. And he jumped on it. And the other one was coming up from Florida. And his roommates bailed on him, and the room was in their name, the hotel room.
Oh.
And he was talking about how he might not be able to go because he had nowhere to stay. And I'm like, dude, I got a couch. I mean, the bed's already taken, but you're welcome to the couch. So I had two guys that were staying at my house for the convention, and I knew them.
Never met before.
Yeah, never met either one of them before. One of them was Nick Feigl.
Oh yeah. From Tampa.
Yeah, from Florida. Yeah. He was the guy that was sleeping on my couch, and the other one was Daniel Coben, who kind of has faded out of the organization. But the other one was Daniel Coben. And, I drove into the convention every day and came home every night to go to sleep. And, the story is the same as so many other guys. You went to your first convention, you walked in, 30 minutes, an hour after you got there, you suddenly realized, oh crap, I just found my people. I was convinced that I was alone. Come to find out that at the time, like the Triangle Stay-at-Home Dads group was one of the most active groups in the country.
Yep.
At that point, they had like 20, 30 dads that were showing up for morning play group. And some of them lived right in my area, and I knew none of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
I didn't even know they were there. Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
no idea.
I love that story because I love all of that story, and I've heard it, a couple times, but I always love that part of it because that's the same thing that I've found. I'm up here in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, and I'm like, there's not going to be any more stay-at-home dads. There's not. And all I had to do was ask on a local Facebook page, and they had, oh yeah, we got it's just dads. It's not, at-home dads. We got a group right here. Won't you join us? And I'm like, what? And the guy, actually one of the guys that did some of the artwork that I have in the house, and we have one of the signs outside, and he painted those. Right. Nice. And I'm like, I know your name. And he's like, cool. Because I'm like, he's like, I don't know you at all, sir. You're from Georgia. I've never been there. And he said, well, I do some artwork. And I'm like, do you paint? He said, yeah. I'm like, oh my God, you painted and we picked it up at the whatever festival that was my wife was at when she got it. And he's like, oh wow, what's the chances? I'd meet another at-home dad, and he's at least a collector, I guess, if not a fan. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I only have two things, and yeah, one of them's a yard sign, but still, yeah, sure, I'm a collector, definitely a fan. But it was amazing. And things like the City Dads group, and of course our convention, it really brings home the fact that there are dads out there doing it too. Oh yeah. Even in the most rural areas, you just have to look around a little more. It's great. And I love that part.
Yeah. But I went to that convention, and I remember at the end of that convention, the then president of the organization, Chris Routley, stood up on stage and announced that the next year's convention was going to be in Portland, Oregon. And I bought my ticket to the convention before I left the building on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I met in Portland, Oregon. She did her undergraduate work there. I went to culinary school there. So I figured it'd be a pretty easy sell to convince her to go. And, you know, I attended that one. And then the next one after that was in Orlando. And when Orlando came around, at the time, a couple of members of the board were my local guys. You know, we had Austin Dowd and David Rogers were both part of our local, like, you know, morning play group. And I was overhearing them talking about issues they were having putting the convention together, particularly with food and beverage. And I kind of just walked over and went, you know, guys, that's what I did for a living for 25 years before I became a stay-at-home dad, was like restaurants and, you know, banquets and that type of thing. I'm like, I'm more than happy to help if I can.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing food for the convention every year since then.
Yeah. And when did you get on the board?
I didn't get on the board until Minneapolis.
Okay.
Which was 2019. Was when I ran for the board. Initially, I was planning on waiting until 2020 because the plan was that, you know, I knew I wanted to run for the board, but I wanted to wait until I had enough time to like really dedicate myself to it. And I figured that once my youngest started pre-K, I'd have that 4 hours a day without kids and I could really focus on the work.
Yep.
And then, you know, for those people that were involved in the organization, there was a bit of a kerfuffle on the board. Several people had family emergencies. A lot of people left the board, came on the board, left the board. And going into Minneapolis, there was just a genuine need. And one of the members of the nomination committee approached me and they were like, you know, I know you had said 2020, but, and I sat down and talked to my wife about it because, you know, you can't be on the board if you don't have your partner's support.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
wholeheartedly, yes.
It takes a lot of time. It does not pay you anything. You know, it's a 100% volunteer. It is a volunteer time suck.
It is. It's a drain.
I mean, it is.
I love it though. I love it.
I absolutely love it. But I wanted to make sure that she was on board, and she said, you know, if it's what you want to do, go for it. Mm-hmm. And so in 2019, I ran and was elected. And then in 2021, when Quetzal Torres, who had been our secretary as long as I had been on the board, he left the board, which left the secretary position open. I put myself forward to do that, and I've been secretary for that year. And then last year, I ran for re-election to the board, again with the wife's endorsement, because I still feel like, you know, there's more that I wanted to do, and especially having taken on the secretary role. When I took on that role, it introduced like a whole new set of challenges.
I want to interject real quick with that. So what does that look like? What does the role of secretary, what does that mean exactly? Because I think a lot of times our members hear like, oh, like you're the president, oh, you're the secretary, you're the treasurer, whatever. And I mean, treasurer, I think most people understand what that is, but yeah, secretary, that's pretty easy money. Yeah. But for secretary, like what exactly does that entail for you?
For me, a lot of it involves just making sure that we are keeping the proper records of what the board does. Not only do we have minutes available for all of our board meetings, but on top of that, we have our own, like, I don't know what you call it, because again, I'm 50 and old. Is it a Slack server?
Slack That's good channel? Enough. No, Slack server is good enough.
We have a Slack thing, and we do a lot of discussion as a board on Slack. So I have, you know, I keep track of what's going on Slack. one of the major responsibilities is getting the agendas put together for the board meetings. Because honestly, if left to our own devices and we all just showed up and it was like, what do we want to talk about today? Every board meeting would be 7 hours long.
It'd be like
Mhm.
all 9 of us walking into one room and looking up at the ceiling going, oh, what are we doing here?
Yeah. So I'll go through Slack and look at all the things that we've discussed, and then look at what happened at the previous board meeting, and look at what got resolved, what didn't get resolved, and put all of that together for the agenda. And then make sure after that meeting that there's detailed minutes, because the minutes of our board meetings are available to any member of the organization. Now, in the past, the way that members got those minutes was that they had to make a request to the secretary of the organization, who would then take the minutes and package them up and email them to that person. We have since changed that now that we have a members area over on our website. We haven't gotten to that point yet, but mostly that's just because I'm still learning how to do things on a website. But eventually, hopefully in the coming months, board meeting minutes will be up within 1 month, because we write the minutes and then at the following month's board meeting, the board has to vote to approve those minutes as written, because nobody's perfect and I might miss something or credit something to one person that somebody else said or that type of thing. But hopefully within the coming months, those board meeting minutes will be up like within a day of being approved, so that any member can look at what's going on. Because being a volunteer organization, um, one of the things that I'm working hard to do as a secretary is increase like transparency. And it's not that the board's ever been hiding anything. It's just that
We've
it's
also not been
requires
very forthcoming on things.
right. It
Well-
like it's required effort to get the information, instead
Yeah.
of the information just being easily available to anybody who wants it.
Yeah.
And the other part is making sure, and that's part of the reason why we're doing this with all the board members, having them on the podcast, is to let the members know this stuff is here.
Mhm.
If you wanted to look at it, there it is. You know, whatever it might be. With the minutes is a great example. What do you guys talk about at your board meeting? Yeah, no, I'm not going to. I'm not even going to try to tell you, because again, it's a 9-hour process. But no, it's not 9 hours. But it is such a lengthy process. We do cover so many things. There's so much work to do. Love that you're interested here. You know, and if you want another one, it's right. You just right there.
Read your
So,
way
yeah.
through them.
Yeah. So rather
You
than,
know.
transparency is a great word for it. But again, nothing we've ever been, hiding at all. But this is what we have. This is what we have going on. This is what we're doing. And we're doing it for these reasons. And that's a very important thing for, I think, for all of our membership to understand, that they can at any time access that. So I want to give you the appropriate kudos for bringing that process along. I don't think it's where you want it in, like,
Not
complete,
yet.
right? Yeah. Okay. So,
Not
but
yet.
still,
Well,
you've progressed.
We're in the process of porting the website from one web carrier to a different web carrier
Mhm.
that will offer us a little bit better customer service. And again,
We're changing hosts. Yes.
There we go.
That's what we're doing. We're
Okay.
changing
Again,
hosts.
50-year-old does not
You're
know
okay.
these terms.
Yes, we're moving the website.
You're
from-
killing me. You're killing me. I am older than you, man.
Okay.
I know all
Sure.
these words.
Okay. Well,
I don't know, man.
I love it.
I was never that much of a tech guy to start with. Like, I knew enough about computers to do what I needed to do.
I get it.
I'm
It's
learning
just
a lot more of
funny.
it now.
It's because I've had,
It's all
you're not
good.
the only person. There are 3 other dads I know of that are in their 50s or late 40s. And they're like, it's just, this newfangled. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Well,
It's
the
this. Why is
social
it not
media
this? But
stuff-
again,
The social media stuff I'm able to keep up with, and that's not a big loop for me. The hard part for me is getting into the nuts and bolts of like running a website.
Yeah.
One of the duties that came to me as secretary is maintaining our membership roles.
Mhm.
So when somebody joins on our website, they click the button, they pay their $35 or they pay their $500 lifetime membership. The treasurer gets a notification of the payment that gets forwarded to the secretary, and then it's my job to make sure that they get added to the membership roll, that we have all the information from them that we need. We have to have an email address so that we can email them information. We have to have a physical address
Mhm.
so that we can send them, their swag. And that's another part of my job, is sending
Mhm.
out all the swag, and making sure that that gets out there. One of the things that I'm hoping to do more of this year is steer the secretary position into also being like the liaison between the board and the membership,
Mhm.
so that if a member has a question or wants to know something and doesn't know who to go to, email the secretary. I may not have the answer, but I'll at least know who does,
Right. Be able to
and
make the
can get you
connection.
into contact with the person who can answer your
Yep, yep.
question. But there's not a whole lot of clear communication lanes currently set up.
Mhm.
So, I want to get more of a back and forth going with the membership and not just us doing our thing.
Mhm. Yeah, me too. Definitely. I mean, again, that's why we're doing this. So, okay, so
Yeah.
let's switch gears for a second because
Okay.
your kids are in school, all right? And I don't know if you know that, but if you know this, but that means you're now promoted into management,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you do have more time. It may just be an hour a day, it may be 5-6 hours a day, but with your kids going to school, that's still you still have all of the home stuff to do. So I'm not talking about, oh, well, you have all of this free time. What do you just eat bonbons and watch soap operas or no, it's not that kind of life. I know,
Yeah.
but you do have more free time.
Yeah.
And so we again trying to drill down into who our board members are and what they're into and stuff is we did prep you with a couple of questions. I hope you had a chance to look at them. But first one I would like to ask is, because I'm interested in this personally, what's your favorite movie?
Definitely Star Wars.
Okay.
If I have to narrow it down to one, I can't, but I can narrow it down to two.
3? Oh, 2. All right. Even
Two.
better.
I can narrow it down to two, and I'm going to be really divisive with this. Empire Strikes Back,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm ready for the hate mail,
Yeah. Not a
and The
favorite
Last
with a lot of
Jedi.
fans. And The
And The
Last
Last
Jedi.
Jedi.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Those are
Yeah.
my two favorites,
Okay.
mostly because they didn't give you what you expected.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
That's
I
true.
don't find anything enjoyable if I walk into a movie and I know what's coming throughout the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
I like a movie that I walk into and periodically I'm just like, oh, never saw that coming.
Yeah. Yeah. Always
And
better.
both of those movies did a really, really good job of that. Now, granted, for some reason, everybody thought that them doing it in Empire was wonderful. And then when they did it in The Last Jedi, everybody, like a whole lot of people, got really angry about that. But
Well,
again, I liked it.
Yeah, and
But yeah,
you're talking about a
those were,
fan base. That's
yeah.
and that's its own thing,
And there's nothing you're going to do to ever make everybody in any fan
No.
base happy, no matter what
No.
it is.
That is
No.
interesting, though, that you would pick those two, especially Last Jedi, because there is such controversy with that movie, just with a lot of the fan base. But I honestly really enjoyed Last Jedi. I mean, I'm not saying it was one of my favorites, but it was a super enjoyable movie. And yes, it did have some very cool twists to it that I did not foresee. So that kept me on the edge of my seat while I was watching it.
Spoiler alert, in case anybody hasn't watched it, you can go ahead and fast forward a few seconds. But again, one of the most amazing moments in that entire movie, at least in my opinion, from a cinematography point of view, was that moment when she light speeds the ship through the other ship.
Yes.
And they drop all the sound and
Mhm.
everything is just dead silent in the theater, and you watch it, even thinking about it, I still get goosebumps. I mean, that was just an amazing piece of cinema.
That was definitely a moment that I did not ever expect to see in the Star Wars cinematic world. That was very wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I mean, like I said, that part was fantastic. And again, I mean, I love all things Star Wars. And when I say all things Star Wars, I mean all things Star Wars. I even like the original holiday special.
Christmas
You know, the one where the
Ewoks.
Wookiees talk Wookiee back and
We're
forth
really
to each
gonna.
other with no subtitles.
All right, we really got to try this. Okay. I can understand liking that. All right, but where do you stand when it comes to Jar Jar Binks?
You know, I hated I hated him when the movies came out. And then I had this really weird experience. My daughter was 4, and my wife went away for the first time out of town and left me with my daughter and my infant son and like a freezer full of breast milk. And she went to a convention for like 4 days. And I had this baby and I had my 4-year-old, and I decided that, you know what, we're going to watch Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
So we watched the original, A New Hope. She loved it. We watched Empire. We watched Return of the Jedi. And at the end of Return of the Jedi, she floored me because I asked her what she thought, you know, all excited. And she's like, it was really sad. And I'm like, what? Wait a minute. Like, the good guys won. Like, everybody lived happily ever after. The Empire's gone. Like, why is this sad? And my 4-year-old turns around, looks me in the eye, and goes, well, because Luke's daddy didn't love him until he was dying. And my immediate thought was, I'm going to go to the bathroom now and cry. So I like went to the bathroom and like bawled for a little while.
Shots fired.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like, damn.
Yeah.
And we had this great moment. And then she looked at me and went, well, are there more? And like everybody in my generation, I had my preconceived notions of what I experienced with the prequels.
Right.
And I let out a big sigh and I said, well, kind of. And she's like, well, let's watch them. And I said, okay. And we sat down and we watched The Phantom Menace together.
Mm-hmm.
And what I remembered of the prequels was I remember The Phantom Menace was just like god awful with the whiny kid and Jar Jar, and everything about it was terrible.
Metachlorians.
Yeah, like everything about it was terrible. I had almost no memory of Attack of the Clones. And then I remembered that Revenge of the Sith was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting down and watching Phantom Menace with a 4-year-old, it gave me an entirely new perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Jar Jar wasn't there for me. Not as an adult, not as a young adult when it came out back in the 90s. Jar Jar was there for the kids. Because let me tell you, my 4-year-old thought he was the most hilarious thing that she had ever seen. She was absolutely delighted with it. And sitting next to her for the first time, I got it. I absolutely got it. And now at this point, honestly, The Phantom Menace is my favorite of the prequels. Attack of the Clones is just awful. I don't know if either one of you have watched it recently, but it is like 2.5 hours of slog.
I'm not a big fan of Attack of the Clones, but I will say that things like Bad Batch that came out of that was an excellent kickoff of that. I feel like it sort of like saves it a little bit.
Yeah, the cartoons are awesome, like the Clone Wars, the Bad Batch, all of that is amazing. But the actual movie is like 2.5 hours of a terrible romance between Anakin and Padme.
Yes.
You know, and the two actors had like had zero chemistry.
Yeah, it was awkward.
None. It was so bad. And it just went on and on. And then I remembered Revenge of the Sith being awesome. And then having gone back and rewatched it, then I realized, no, I had just blocked out the first half of that movie. Because the first half of that movie is more of that bad romance. It's the last half that you remember being awesome. And you just forgot about that. And we're just lumping it in.
Yeah.
But honestly, at this point, I kind of like Jar Jar because I understand it now. And knowing that it's not for me, but knowing how much enjoyment my kid got out of it, I understand.
Oh, that's cool. No, I like that. That's great, man. Thanks for sharing that. Because I was curious about that too. So, all right, some other questions that we shot over to you ahead of time, just so
Mhm.
there wasn't a lot of wonderings. Um, what is your favorite vacation that you've gone on?
So my favorite vacation before kids would have to have been my honeymoon. My wife and I ate our way across Europe.
Ooh,
We did Paris, Lyon, Venice, Venice, Italy, and Bologna, Italy. And basically, different people go to Europe for different reasons. We went to Europe to just eat,
Hmm.
eat and drink. That is what we did. And it was absolutely amazing. You know, we did the whole like look at the cathedrals and all that type of thing, but like I ate at my first Michelin starred restaurant on that trip. I got to one of my friends made arrangements for me to actually spend a half a day working in a high-end Italian restaurant in Bologna, Italy.
Wow.
Um, where I actually like again, there was this moment during dinner where my friend Daniel, he and his wife go to Bologna every year, and when they found out we were going to be coming through Bologna, they're like, "Hey, man, hit us up when you get to town. Like, we'll hang out." And I'm expecting, you know, like we'll go out to dinner one night and that will be it. And in reality, like they took us under their wings and just like showed us Bologna the way only somebody who spends a month there every year could possibly know.
Yeah.
And they took us to our favorite restaurant. About halfway through the meal, Daniel looks up and says, "So I know it's your honeymoon, and I understand if you know you can't really do it, but I was talking to the chef, and he would have no problem with you coming in to Stodge tomorrow for half a day, just to spend a little bit of time in the kitchen." And I turned around and looked at my wife with eyes like saucers. And she looked at me, she's like, "You've been twitchy, just go, go." And I got to spend half a day stuck, and it was an amazing experience. I
Oh, I'm
mean,
wow.
sure. Yeah.
um, I speak no Italian. He
Yeah.
spoke no English. We basically communicated through pigeon like culinary French,
Hmm.
which neither one of us were very good at, but like we
Yeah.
managed to communicate enough to have fun. You know, at the time I was working at a French restaurant, so he kept making fun of me because I was doing everything too fancy.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, you know, chop up this parsley. And I'm like doing little bitty chiffonade, like perfect little cuts. He's like, "We don't do that, just chop." And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Just
"Okay."
chop.
I'm like, but it was fantastic. As far as my favorite one that I've done since having kids, that would probably be right before my daughter started second grade. We took a 5-day vacation in Southern Virginia, right along the Blue Ridge Parkway and the Appalachians, and we referred to it as our Chasing Waterfalls vacation.
Hmm.
The Virginia Board of Tourism put out a list of the best waterfalls that you can go see in Virginia. So we went hiking, and I think we saw 6 waterfalls in 4 days.
Wow.
And I mean, like, all I think every day there was at least one waterfall where we could go splash in the waterfall or swim in the
Hmm.
waterfall.
Of
And
course.
it was just an absolute blast with the kids. And
Hmm.
since then, now every time we go to the mountains, the first question is, when can we swim at a waterfall?
Hmm.
You know, so we now have to figure out where the closest waterfall is to where we're staying so that we can go swim.
It's a tradition.
It is. It really is. And
It's
it's a great
perfect.
tradition. You know, it
That's
gets the
cool.
kids out. They get to go hiking because, you know, very few of these are like right next to the road where you can just like pull over and jump in the waterfall. I think the
Hmm.
biggest one was a 5.5 mile hike round trip. And at the time, you know, it was with a 3-year old and a 6-year old,
Yeah.
and they
Okay.
both made it. I think
Kids
That's
I
are
good.
carried I
kids are
think I
That's good.
carried
resilient.
the I
Yeah.
think I carried the 3-year-old for like the last mile on the way back, but it wasn't that bad.
My legs are falling off, Dad. Carry me.
Yeah.
um, so when you don't have the kids in the car, what do you listen to?
It really depends on the day. Honestly, lately it's been a whole lot of books on tape, because it's the or I say books on tape because I'm old. Audible app,
What's tape?
Audible app. Like I don't have a cassette deck in the minivan. I don't even have I don't even have a CD. I don't even have a CD player in my car.
Side A is the
it's
first
literally
half of the book,
Audible.
Side B is the second half.
But I do a whole lot of Audible. If I'm listening to music and the kids aren't in the car, lately I've been going back to a lot of my like high school music, which is like early to mid 80s punk rock.
Yeah, buddy.
A lot of like Agent Orange, Black Flag, Dead Kennedys, Suicidal Tendencies, Circle Jerks, Fear, Bad Brains, and that type of thing. And then a combination of that mixed in with like mid to late 80s new wave, so The Cure and Depeche Mode and that kind of it's a little bit of everything, really.
That's cool. I got very depressed today. I was listening to the like classic rock station here in town, and two songs from when I was a kid popped on there. One of them was a Green Day song, and one of them was a Blues Travelers song. And I'm like, no, what the hell?
Dude, I've been in the grocery store. I've been in the grocery store and heard Nirvana as Muzak.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, I forget who it was. We were talking with somebody about this, but yeah, dude, like
Nirvana was 32 years ago.
But it's gotten popular because they used it in the most recent Batman movie, and that's what made it like kick back up again. So that's why everybody's like, oh, they're all listening to it again.
Well, people talk about how I can't believe, they're playing like Pearl Jam on the Oldies channel.
Yeah.
Again, this is from 1990. That
I know.
32 years ago.
Yeah.
I graduated high school in 1990. That was the equivalent of a song from 1958.
Right.
Yeah.
So
drive around.
It's oldies.
Driving around with my teenager and listening to the music he listens to, right? And I try to be open-eared, as it were, open-minded about it all. But the stuff that he brings up, and some of it, I'm just like, this is garbage. This is just garbage. But then I realize, okay, so when I was a teenager, what was on? Oh, it's great. No, it was some garbage.
Someone else thought it was garbage.
It was some garbage. Well,
actually,
for sure.
Probably at that time, garbage was actually
garbage was.
Yeah, garbage was.
Yeah.
See, and this is the fun part. My kids are still young enough that I still get control over the radio. But they get to make picks. My daughter is on a huge kick of like 90s female-driven bands. So she's a big fan of Garbage. She's a big fan of Eve's Plum. By the same token, she's really into like the Bangles and any of the girl bands. She's all about that. Nice. No Doubt, any
No
of
Doubt.
those.
There you go.
No Doubt is one of my favorite bands. Gwen Stefani is a goddess. I'm just saying.
She's amazing. Yeah.
But by the set, she's also into like 10,000 Maniacs, Natalie Merchant, any female-led song she's all about.
That's awesome.
My son
representation.
My son at 5 has become like a diehard metalhead.
Oh, I got something for you on that then. If he's a diehard metalhead, you should check out Heavy Metal Disney songs.
Okay.
It's all the Disney songs done in heavy metal.
He doesn't want kid songs.
Right, but these don't sound like kid songs. I mean, it's the kid songs.
Now, my son's favorite songs are War Pigs by Black Sabbath. Epic by Faith No More.
Oh my God.
Battery by Metallica.
Oh,
I don't know that.
Bodies by Drowning Pool. It's hilarious because we'll alternate in the car. Like I'll put on YouTube Music and each one of the kids gets to pick a song. So like it's my daughter's turn and she's like, let's play These Are the Days from 10,000 Maniacs. And then it's my son's turn and he's like, Bodies by Drowning Pools. A little bit of whiplash back and forth.
A little bit, yeah. Does your daughter listen to Cyndi Lauper?
I haven't even introduced her to any of that.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah, I'll have to give that a shot.
Yeah, you got to get some Cyndi Lauper in with all that, man. She's the queen of the female singers. So especially from that
Yeah,
era.
I hadn't even thought about Cyndi Lauper. We recently started introducing her to Tori Amos.
Oh, there you go.
Which she's really happy with. I'm not quite ready to introduce her to Ani DeFranco yet, just because she doesn't need those words in her vocabulary.
Probably not. No, you might want to hold off on that one. But
yeah. I mean, I'm a big Ani fan. I'm a big Ani fan, and when the kids are at school lately, I've been playing several. Like, I actually picked up Ani DeFranco's "Living in Clip" on 180 gram vinyl lately, the 25th anniversary edition of it.
Okay.
And I've been listening to that when the kids aren't home.
Nice.
Because if you've heard it before, then no.
It's all good. And then before we go, I'm curious, did you come to us with a dad joke?
Absolutely.
Oh man, there we go. All right, let's hear it. What do you got?
All right. Guy comes rushing into the doctor's office in an absolute blind panic. And he's like, doctor, you have to help me. I'm shrinking. He's like, hold on. Calm down. Give me a minute. You're just going to have to learn to be a little patient.
Tish.
Love it. Danny, you got one for tonight? Did you come with anything?
No, but why did the cookie go to the doctor? Because it felt crummy.
I actually heard that joke recently on an episode of the Dad Ass podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That is my 9-year-old's favorite joke. Even now, he's been telling it for 5 years.
Okay.
And every time I'm like, hey, man, and we'll start telling jokes. He goes, Dad, why did I'm like, no, man, come on. You can't get me again. But he does every time I laugh when I do every time, just because it's him doing it.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah. Why is diarrhea hereditary? Because it runs
in your genes.
It runs in your genes.
I love it. Danny's like cover. He's like, I know this one.
It's really hard for me not to tell the punchline to jokes.
You're okay.
Because I'm already laughing. It's making me laugh, but I want you to tell the other person to tell it. I keep stepping on people's toes like that. So,
well, that's I said, like when I was listening to the Dad Ass podcast episodes, because I was they did a recap of Home Dad Con. I hadn't listened to it yet, which honestly, if you haven't listened to it yet, you should, because it's great. Because we all have experienced Home Dad Con from the planning side of things, but to hear it from somebody who was like just literally attending it,
the thermostat,
and a first time attendee at that, right?
That too. Thermostat story.
The thermostat story was great because it's exactly Go ahead.
Because it's what we talked about on the show. Honestly, just the fact that it has a mind of its own.
It has a motion sensor, so it'll shut off when
I'm like leaving my room, and I'd come back. I'm like, why is it set so high?
Why is it hot in here? Because you're staying in Phoenix, and they have to shut it off. So it was amazing. But anyway,
we won't have that problem next year.
So
we won't have that problem next year in Milwaukee. It should be nice.
I'm hoping to find a place that has a fire pit, and we just all sit around the fire pit and solve the world's problems. It's just
that would be awesome. I like that
way
idea.
Better.
But yeah, no.
Anyway,
but I wanted to give them a little bit of a plug too for this show, because like they did an excellent episode talking about their experience with Home Dad Con. I find that and Matt, I don't know, but the spot where they talked about taking the enchilada up to their room was hysterical. But the best part was, so like they told me that story, and I said, well, I did one better than that. And they're like, because he was like, I ran up 12 flights of stairs with this enchilada. I'm like, geez, dude. I was like, I literally like walked to the elevator with an entire plate of food for Jorge.
Yeah, but
because he was coming in later.
Right after you left was when the catering or the guy in charge of the service staff. Right after you ducked was when he figured out that people were leaving with food, and he started watching like a freaking.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So someone mentioned smelling food in the elevator, and his little alarm went off. What are you doing? No food out of the dining room. That guy was
hilarious.
Fun.
I didn't realize that. That's really funny. Yeah, because I got all the way up to the room and threw it in the fridge and gave it to Jorge when he came up. I was like, hey, I brought you an entire plate of food.
I get it. Having been on his side of things,
sure.
I totally understand it. But
just
at the same time, like Come on, man. Just let us feed these guys.
Right. We just had to, we had to see if we could push the envelope on it. So,
Well, of course.
oh man. Well, Matt, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. It's been
Hey, no
awesome just
problem.
getting to hear from you. Hopefully the guys learn stuff. I know like with JHG's episode last week, there were lots of comments that took place in Discord and guys talking about different things. So hopefully that continues as well.
Yeah, most people have no idea that JHG is a hardcore, like hardcore metalhead.
Right? They do now.
And a nerd, like in a cool way. I mean, you look at him, you're like, that dude's a nerd. But no, he's actually with sci-fi and stuff. He's got his he's got his cool cred.
He's kind of like an Eddie Munson.
I was gonna say the D&D kids always listen to like a little bit of the heavier music.
Yeah. Get a few of those around. All right. Well, cool, man. Well, hey, thanks for coming on. And we definitely look forward to talking to the next board member that comes into play. We've got guests lined up for the next few episodes, and we will talk to you all again next week. So have a good one.
Good night, everybody.
Everybody have a good night.
I'm a dad, that's what I do.